Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. We are happy to have you here on YouTube or listening to your podcast app and to find out how to create the life that you want. This is exactly what our guest today has done in her life, bringing happiness and joy to lots of people by bringing them art in a different context. And we'll know all the details about it. First, we're going to introduce her. Her name is Jaelyn Singleton. So, welcome to the show. Happy to have you.
Hi, thank you so much for the invitation. Very happy to be here.
Very happy here and there. We're all happy because we are talking about art. And you are from Sacramento in California, so I know there is so much art and venues and theater, music, exhibitions, and there are also things like murals and fine arts. And there are different types of art there and also different perceptions of art. And you also told me a little bit about how the arts and the politics are interconnected. So there was like an issue you were trying to solve there. Can you explain it to us in better English than mine?
Yes, absolutely. So, plainly, there was a huge disparity. There was not access to art across the board, right? So, again, Sacramento, California, we're the capital of the state. So, a lot of the politics in one of the largest states in America are rooted here. We are also very close to the Bay Area, about 80 miles away, which is a huge art and culture hub in the world. And so having these two intersections of art and culture and politics, there's a lot of, screen printing, murals, poetry that comes out of Sacramento to describe our experiences in relation to our politics. So, also as a place that also has a hub of fine art centers, of galleries, there seemed to be a huge gap between what was fine art, what people were willing to pay for, what people were willing to see, what people were willing to invest in, and the common person, right? Even though art was all around us, we did not have access to either the materials, the resources, or the space to create and share art as the same as folks within the fine art and high art spaces. And so I'd say for the last 10 years, part of my work through Honey Mother community programs has been to create more spaces where fine art, high art, common art, political art can all exist under the same umbrella.
This is incredible. I mean, it's a dream, you know? Finally, we can do it all. How did you do it? I mean, most people will say, well, this is so complicated. How on earth am I going to do this? And I know you're interested in holistic wellness. So you have all these collaborations with people. How did you get started? This looks such an exciting project.
Yeah, I think this is where the political community organizing really came in and helped me because you do have to engage the community. You have to see what the community wants, right? I can have all of these great ideas in my head, but if I'm not taking inventory of what my community wants, it doesn't go anywhere. So first, it started like, simple surveys, asking questions, going to the places where art was already happening and having conversations with people one-on-one. What do you think is missing? Would you like to see this at a different scale? Is this too expensive for you? Right? Asking the very practical questions in relation to the art that no one wants to ask, right? When you're in a gallery space, and there's pictures or photographs on the walls that are thousands and thousands of dollars. No one wants to ask the question of, hey, was this, hey, the entry fee was $30. Like that was kind of stiff. Or we want to make these places more inclusive. So it started with asking questions of the community members, which I would would aim to serve. And from there, I was able to figure out various ways to bring art to community.
Okay, so I really have to ask this. Are you also an artist or you're just a person who loves your art anyway? So he or she wants to enjoy them better.
Right. So definitely started more as an enjoyer of art, right? I think within art being inaccessible, we have all of these people who are super creative who are scared to call themselves artists, right? There's these glass ceilings of what it means to be an artist. Do people buy your art? Do people look at your art? And so for me, myself, I am a creative. I am an artist. I've been writing poetry for as long as I can remember. I have also modeled extensively and have recently gotten into photography and multimedia art. So, it took me a long time to even be comfortable calling myself an artist based on just these grandiose ideas of what we think art and artists are.
That makes a lot of sense. Not everyone is Raffaello or Picasso, but we can do so much because art is a gift that we have for ourselves that we want to share with the world. And if we can't even call ourselves an artist, this is like the starving artist mindset of I'm never gonna get a proper job thing. And this is not so important. But if you think every day, if you look in a house, in a store, it's full of art everywhere. There is so much art coming through the music, through the drapery, through the textiles you have, through the visual imagery, everything that you have is going to have a shape. Somebody designed that, right?
Right.
Somebody thought about that. And all the creativity, reading a book, looking at the illustration, understanding, learning a textbook. Even you study medicine, somebody has designed all this illustration to see how the human body is made. So art is everywhere. And there isn't just visual art, there is so much more. As you said, poetry is incredible. I remember interviewing a couple of weeks ago Robert Minicucci, who is a poet and a poetry listener. And he loves it. It's got a therapeutical effect on him. So art is so important. And yet we are trying to hide a little bit. And I am an architect, but I'm also an artist, as if it's something wrong. And yet you managed to bring this notion to lots of the different places. For example, you said you had salons or you offered demos and workshops. So after your initial stage of asking the question and then
Mhm.
doing your polls, what was the result of your research that told you, okay, that's the next step you need to take?
Right. So that was a perfect segue of, art is everywhere. So how do we bring people together? And I think it was just like, I don't want to say dumbing down art, but just simply bringing people together in the name of art. So I started off in my art spaces as a creative director. I would creative direct these spaces where people would come together. Typically, there was a musical component, a visual art component, and then there was like a lounge space where people were, there were art materials placed with a couple prompts where people were motivated to create art in space with other people. So this was under a group called Occupy Space. This was in 2017, 2018. And every month or so, we would partner with local community spaces, whether that would be a brewery or a recording studio or, a music venue. How do we bring people into this space and where they feel held, where they feel, where there's things to do? And that is kind of where the salons came from, right? When we think about the 1930s, the 1940s, people would go to Paris in the apartments with their cigarettes and talking with all of their artist friends. We wanted to bring that essence of community, communication, and the center being art back to these spaces, but in a way where it didn't feel like a person had to be an expert to engage. And I think those early days, specifically with Occupy Space, people had everything they needed. They had the art, they had the people, they had the topics and the materials right there. And so that was kind of like the birth of my own ways of creating more accessible art spaces.
Well, it's a great concept, and I like that you were saying in your bio that you are very dedicated also in healing. So you want to nourish those communities that might be marginalized in your particular area, which can be different from country to country, state to state. So you want to bring them this expertise, this blend of spirituality, yoga, holistic wellness, some social work, some activism, always intersectional. So you are not putting everything in a box. you're thinking that you have this vision, right, where art is part of a healing, part of progress, part of connection. I really love the idea because it's important to know that if you are alone, maybe you're unemployed or you're ill, maybe one of your people in your house has a problem, and you want those 2 hours out to just rest your mind, instead of going to the bar and getting drunk, instead of going on drugs, you can go actually to a wellness center where you can enjoy art, music, poetry, and just being there. I think that's like incredible.
Right. Yeah,
Incredible.
absolutely. When we think of whole, the holistic person, we think of these salons, right? Your need for socialization is met. Your need to calm down, to unwind is met, but just by browsing art, right? Your basic needs are met. You're physically safe. You have food, you have drink. Those needs are met. And then you're also able to express yourself in a way that is unrestricted, right? We're killing four separate, very complex areas of wellness all in one experience.
Let's say we are four separate because that's how traditional medicine has taught us about wellness. But we, as a body, we're connected to the senses, to a spirit, to a soul. We have so much connection visually, and even people who are deaf blind, or have impairment, they can still enjoy so much. Maybe they can even be deaf and enjoy drumming. There was like a very famous
Mhm.
drummer, Elaine, I can't remember her name, but she was deaf, but she could feel the vibration and love it. So I love that you bring this to everyone. And what sparked my curiosity before was thinking, well, didn't you go bankrupt trying to rent a place, get all these people, arrange all the meetings, put the material? But you actually said you came out with a business idea, and I was like, I'm blown out. How did you do that in the arts, which people don't want to spend money on art, apparently?
Right, right. So that's a great question. I think it all goes full circle, right? So when I'm engaging with the community, I'm supporting people. I'm saying, hey, what do you need? There is less of an incentive. I am your community member, right? I am in this with you. Most of the spaces that I have gotten over the last 10 years, I have not had to pay for them because I have community connections with these people. What I like to say is in kind. If I'm renting out this space for 3 hours, but in that 3 hour span, there's 30 different people that may engage with your space in a different way, that is something in kind, right? And even getting into different ways of negotiating, bartering has been a huge lifesaver. If I didn't have the capital, which I'll get into, if I didn't have the capital in the beginning, is there a way that we could trade services? Is there a way that I can provide X that has a $300 value and I'd be able to rent your space, $100 an hour? I think people are not willing to be creative and the way that they do business, right? Some people think it's a very X plus Y equals Z formula, and it doesn't have to be that way. Now, on the other hand, the way that you can build the capital and the way that you can create the business is very simple. Let's take the workshops, for example, right? I'm doing a skill sharing workshop. I want to teach people how to use Procreate, right? Very simple. It's something that a lot of people want to do. If I have a space that can host 30 people, I charge them $30 to learn how to do Procreate over a 2.5 hour period, right? To bring able to build community, learn a skill, and maybe get a couple drinks and a meal, I've just made hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of profit on something very simple in a short period of time. So what is that? 30 people, what is that? Like $900, almost $1,000 in one event in 2.5 hours. Simple, easy, concise. And once you have a system, as I did with the workshops, maybe 1 month it's Procreate. Maybe 1 month it's sewing. Maybe 1 month it's acrylic painting. And then, something that I've also done is bring in collaborators. Maybe I don't know how to paint acrylic as well. Let me bring in a community member, they're also going to bring in their community members. Maybe instead of 30 by myself, I have 60, right? I've just doubled my profit from 900 to 1800, right? And then to take it another level, when we're talking about community, there are tons, thousands and hundreds of grants that are willing to give people money to teach people how to do and build skill. And that's how I got started with grants.
That is so amazing. I just love, and we could talk for a whole month about this because I love the idea of bringing the art to the community. And in my small ways, I've done that as well years ago. We were homeschooling our children, and my daughter really loved drawing. And so I
Mhm.
started to look into which art classes she could take. There was nothing in my town, nothing around. And then I asked, oh, there's a town nearby. I won't tell you the name, but there is a studio where we do art classes for children. So I inquired and asked around, and they say, yeah, it's okay, we teach you, but we teach the children like little kids. We are kind of, how do you say, we kind of looking down on them a little bit. So my child felt a little bit unhappy there. And I thought, oh, that's really bad because my child really loved drawing. And I happen to be an illustrator and a comic artist. And I really wanted her to enjoy doing that with somebody. And I thought, you know what? There is nothing. So I'm going to start my own art class. And so I literally put a post, and 2 hours later, I had 6 students from my first art class.
Wow.
All from my home education. We all came to my house. We had several groups coming. We start from the basic, like structure and all the stuff, how to sketch. I'm a comic artist mostly. I'm not an acrylic painter or anything like that. And so cartoons. And I saw this progression, people that over the 3 years became really, really good. And people who were good and they're testing themselves and getting this feedback and going better. And some of them now are working as illustrators. It's such a joy to see them. But the point was there that I saw there was a need and I fulfilled the need by creating something. And it wasn't a very expensive, I was the most expensive tutor, but they were going to get really good instruction. They could see the improvement from class 1 to class 3. They were going home with a drawing that made sense, with composition, with structure, with good stroke. So I love doing that. And I always thought, if I had stayed in England, I would have continued adding more skills. I've also done a sewing class. And so my next question will be about age, because a lot of parents, at least in the UK, love to pick up a child from school and then take them to a group like Brownies or Scouts to learn other skills. But you have to have some money for that, right? And so kids have an interest. Then there are home educated kids. Then there are people who are going to high school, they're studying lots of stuff they don't care about, and they want to learn something else, maybe woodwork or electrics. And maybe after that, they might be unemployed and they need some skills, but they're not really sure art is for them. And there is usually nothing, or it's far away, or they need an exam to get in. And then you have these moms who have kids, the kids are going to school and they're like, oh, I really like art. Do I have a time? And wait until they're 60 because I can't find anything. So I was interested to see if your own groups and organization cover all sorts of ages, or do you have a program divided in little modules for children only or adults? Or is your program an intersection so you can have a whole community together? That just interested me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think killing two birds with one stone, when you're providing programs through grants, right? If I apply for a $15,000 grant to provide 15 different workshops, people don't have to pay for them because this grant is paying for you to attend. Now, as far as, age groups, typically the realm that I've taken is when it comes to youth. I've tried to go to places that already have youth. So whether that's libraries or partnering with a different, more established program that already has a community base of children, because I think, at least for me, where we're at this day and age, when you start to advertise for kids specifically, you want to make sure all your ducks are in a row. Um, For more teenagers, I actually went back to my high school. So I went to my high school that had a very particular program, and that's how I got high schoolers back into community gardening. Specifically, that's what I did. And then based on the venue, I'm able to kind of say, okay, is this venue going to be able to host all ages, like a brewery? Is it going to be kind of over 21? So I think setting is most important when talking about age and capacity. And then as far as like the cost barrier, when we are going through grants, that cost barrier is not necessarily there.
Yeah, that's very, very good. I always thought that arts in general, so from music to visual, etc., they can be brought to all sections of society. So you can teach art in a prison, you can teach art in a hospital, you can bring art and entertainment, comedy, readings and art even to the old people homes. And I do remember reading and talking about it in the podcast about old people that are in nursing homes, maybe they're 70, 80. They're no longer very mobile, but they really enjoy doing works of art, even come up with their own exhibitions, you know. Then there is also section on disability. So really here is the desire to do something good for society and also getting the reward. Maybe there will be the case when the children meet the older people and they learn how to be together. So at this point, I'm gonna have to ask you this, Jaelyn. Is there anything I have not asked you about that you would like to talk about that we think could be quite important?
I think you just touched on a good point, right? Having the desire to do something and being able to see the benefit, right? Like when I first started, I just wanted to solve a problem, right? And because of my willingness and desire to solve this problem, I've been able to put myself in so many beautiful, expansive places that I never thought I would be able to because of this original question that I gave myself the responsibility to answer. I've been able to travel across the United States, learning, all about sustainability and community and communications, how to solve more complex problems. I've been able to get thousands and thousands of dollars worth of grants. I've been able to get other people thousands and thousands of dollars worth of grants. So I think, just leaving folks with even that seed, that inkling, follow it because you never know where it's going to take you.
Love that. So, okay. So, if a person, whether they're 20, 30, 40, doesn't matter, wants to bring more art to society, whether they are artists or not, or they want to involve the wider community, what would be the steps for them to get this started? I know already about the grants, but what would be the first thing to think about? If they say, "Oh, I'm really excited what Jaelyn has done," of course, I think everyone can just contact Jaelyn and ask, you know, that would be perfect. What did you do? Look up your website. We're going to put is it jaelynelizabeth.org and honeymother.org, and then we can put in the description all the links that you want. But what would you suggest people do first so they can get a step in and get the energy? Because, you know, if we just talk about it, nothing happens. But if we take the first step, the energy will go there and your reticular activating system will start getting with the ideas and inspiration. So first step to get started.
First step, do your research, right? So that looked like me going where the
Mm.
art was and starting to ask questions. Maybe that looks different for you, but you want to make sure that what you're going to bring to the community is different or complementary to what other people are doing. Because there may be someone out there who's doing the exact same thing that you're doing. So do your research.
Research. After doing the research, you find out what is the need in your area, and then do you have to go look for grant? Unless you have all this endless money. So where do we look for grants? Is it like a Google research? Do you have to go to your
Yeah.
government?
So when we're thinking about grants, and this is something that I'd love to help anyone who were to reach out to me about, grants are super interesting because they're going to be, think about a program, think about a problem, right? So you could literally look up, for example, Jaelyn, art-based grants in California. Literally, start there. There's going to be some, and then you're going to be able to refine what you want to use the money for, right? So maybe it's art material grants, maybe it's art learning grants or art field trip grants. Very simple. And from there, you're going to be able to see what your capacity is and how much money you will need. Because with these grants, you're going to have to explore what you're going to do with this money.
Mm.
So that would be step one if you want to go the grant route.
Right, great. So first read your research, then you do the grant research to see what you can do, and then do you need to look for people who can administrate? Because some people will do more of the business side, and if you do it all, you might burn out. And some people might just want to share the skill, and other people are very happy to do a spreadsheet. So do you have to find volunteers, for example?
Yeah, I feel like originally when you first start, keep it small and keep it really clear. What I've noticed, I have all these lofty ideas. I'm an artist. I have ADHD. I start thinking a million miles an hour. I bring in all these people and I have no idea what to do with them,
Right.
right? And so I would say keep small and get really concrete. Have conviction. Have your elevator pitch down before bringing anyone else in to make sure you stay clear, you stay concise, and your vision is yours.
Okay. So then do you do a test of a market to see, because people have filled up the poll, but now when I bring you the course, are you
Hmm.
interested?
Right. So you always do kind of like those, the soft launch, right? You do want to be able to bring that data before you start charging your baseline amount. You want to see how people respond. Have a small group, if 30 is your goal, start with 5 or 6. Invite them into a similar space, doing similar activities, have a pre and post survey, see what they got from it. Ask the questions, do the interviews, because being able to have data and willingness, see where people are willing to commit will do you very, very far. I did that with all of my programming down to what times are you most available? You know, how do you want to pay for something, right? All of these very specific questions will make it so much easier down the road.
That's brilliant. So I can see all these people are thinking, wow, so okay, that's the first step, that's the second. Then I need to do a soft launch. And then after you're going, if you lose the enthusiasm and the energy because people have lives and things happen, then probably there is such a great structure there. There is a protocol, there is a system that you use. So then somebody can jump in and take over and keep running this system and maybe spread it to a nearby area or to a different section of a society and bring it maybe in a small way to a soft launch for a hospital or a soft launch for a prison so they can reach something else. It's not that, oh my gosh, now I'm going to be stuck for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
I don't think so. What do you think?
I don't think so either. I think it's not an if but a when, right? Things always kind of have that stop and go, and then you pick up where you left off, right? If and it's really important to systemize whatever you're doing, right? So with the salons or with the workshops, you can have the same exact format, you can have it, but just you kind of plug in. You just want to be able to plug in. So
Mm.
if I'm doing something on sewing, if I'm doing something on acrylics, I plug it in. And it's again, it's not an if but a when. Are you going to have the willingness to not get down on yourself? All right, we did one soft launch, let's do another one, right? Because I think people say, okay, great, I have the motivation, let me go, let me scale times 100, right? That is not the best move. Start where you left off.
Mm. Yeah, starting very big perhaps is for founders like, great people like Elon Musk. They know already what to do. They have a team, but we don't. And I always think that could be one of the blocks we have. We think, well, because I can see it would need this, that, and that skill and lots of money and lots of time, I'm never going to do it. But actually, if you start small,
Mhm.
test that, maybe get a group of ladies and teach them, 5 of them, how to make a zipper bag and see how it goes. And from there, maybe the zipper bag is from fabric that's been recycled. So you're teaching them about recycling and upcycling stuff from a charity shop. Maybe they have a child and the child says, Well, mommy, I wanted to learn that. And he said, okay, we can do a mom and baby group where the small children learn with very big plastic needles how to do something cute and embroidery. And then maybe we have a good, oh, we want to do Christmas craft. He said, for Christmas, I could do a Christmas craft group. So I think it all stems once you are in doing it in the field. Isn't that correct? If you don't do it, just think about it. Just,
Right. Right. Because, right, well, as you just described, I could have had a group of 5 women, and now maybe I have a group of 20 kids, right? Just kind of building and developing based on something that I'm already doing, right? That's the
yeah.
difference. I'm not thinking about it. I don't have all these different documents. I didn't bring all these people in, but I'm doing the work.
Yeah. And plus, if you have a lot of friends, which happens to be the case with lots of us, you can ask your arty friends, your musician friends, your poet friends, hey, would you like to be part of this? And they might be so excited just to share what we do, even from gardening and then doing crafts out of that and arts out of that. It's just like how to do preserves and then how to make a little label to put on the preserves and just crazy because let's say not everyone needs to go to university and have a degree to be able to get a job that they like. It could be volunteering. I know people in England, my friends who've been volunteering after retiring for 20 years because they love. They work for the Gressonall Museum in East Anglia. They work for Norwich Museum, and they just love being outside, working with the trees and the plants, and that's the way. And then every once in a while, they do have workshops and teach you things like that. And I think that's how the community really gets together. And a community that work together stays together and gets along better. Isn't that an amazing way of creating the life that you want, really enjoy your community? That's my idea.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Well, it's been such a great chat, and I would love to have you forever, every week with a new idea, Jaelyn. But we have to move on. So, just want to say thank you so much for being here today
Thank
with us.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing more about your work as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, I'm excited that I will be sending you links on the day we go live, which is always months after, but that's how it is with the podcast. We record in January what goes out in March, and we record in March to come out in May because that's how we're busy. But I love to bring art to everyone. And I think for too many years, we've been put aside on the society, like, oh, the artist is not very important. But you know what? You live in a house, somebody has made those tables, somebody has designed those curtains, somebody has planted the plants you have, the jewelry you have, everything, even the camera I'm using now is been designed by somebody. So the music we listen to every day is coming from. So we are surrounded. So these are the people who took the step. And the other
Right.
people are just the consumers. And now in the age of AI, my purpose is to show that yes, AI can expand your work, can help you to test, to brainstorm, to go deeper, to find solutions. But in the end of the day, we are the creators. And we have something inside our brain, our mind, our soul that makes us different and special. So we can collaborate with AI, but we don't have to be taken over. We can't just say, oh, well, AI is here, we're just going to disappear. Actually, that's the time to prove how human art matters and the human touch is a healing touch. So I thank you so much for being here.
Thank
And
you.
I hope that you guys listening to this will be inspired to get something started. Maybe start brainstorming what you can do to bring more art of any sort to your society and to your culture, and maybe gardening, including music and theater. Hey, there are so many things. I'm not going to make you a list. You can make the list, maybe with your friends, form a group even in your own high school, a group of interest, calligraphy, history, just do something about it. Designing costumes for your theater production. Isn't that amazing and much more fun? Just scrolling the whole day on his blasted mobile phone. So, everyone, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you have a great week. And remember to click like and subscribe so you can have more of this content in the future for you. See you all. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.